good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you may be watching. Thank you so much for coming for another episode. Today we're outdoors. Today's episode we're going to be talking about animals and things that could affect your plants now that we've moved them outdoors. But before we continue, as always, I'd like to say a big thank you to those of you who may have liked, shared, subscribed, reached out, asked questions. I really do appreciate you. So, how are your green babies doing in the great outdoors? You may notice that once they're outdoors, there's a bit of an uptake in terms of growth. Or you notice the leaves are looking a lot greener, or some of them might still be adjusting to their new environment, and that's okay. As I mentioned before, and I'll continue mentioning, patience is key when it comes to gardening. So today we're going to talk about 10 of the most common animals or pests that can affect your garden, and also natural remedies on how to prevent that. Focusing on natural remedies because if you want to use like chemicals or store-bought things, once you go to the store and ask them, they'll tell you what to use. But as I mentioned, I prefer using natural remedies, so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today.
So let's start with squirrels. The format I'm going to be using is just let you know what to look out for and what natural deterrents can be used for that. And then I'll then just show you like a table of different deterrents and also talk about the recipes. So squirrels, I think I find these the most cheeky animals when it comes to plants because they tend to just eat a bit of whatever it is they're there, or they just take everything in as a whole. So what you look out for there is if you find your plants or your fruit are half eaten, or there's digging in the garden, or you're missing some seedlings, there's a possibility that it's squirrels. What you do here is you can actually sprinkle cayenne pepper, chili flakes, or garlic powder around the plants, just on the floor around the plants, or you can hang some shiny objects about, so that at least that way there's a reflection into the squirrels' eyes, so they tend to run, or you can actually cover the beds with netting or chicken wire. Next, we'll talk about birds. With birds, you'll just see like peck marks on the fruit itself, and birds are typically attracted to bright colors. So this will most likely happen when you're in the ripening phase, whereby your plants are red or yellow just before you harvest them. What you can do here is get like a plastic cover there, the reflected aluminium or reflecting things that can reflect, or you can actually put like decoy animals in your garden, like a snake or or an owl, or things that birds are typically afraid of. That will also ward them off. Next, we'll talk about rabbits. Rabbits, you just see neatly clipped stems and leaves, often at ground level. And for rabbits, you don't even need to see them creating havoc on your plants to react. Once you see rabbits lurking in your neighborhood, I think it's better to save your plants than to be sorry. So what you can do is to spray your plants with a garlic and hot pepper solution, or you can use chicken wire fencing. And when you're doing that, just let it be at least 16 inches tall and partially buried. No rabbits can actually burrow a hole. And then you can also scatter bone meal or crushed mothballs around the perimeter. Now, bone meal, I use it as a fertilizer. So while I'm fertilizing my plants, sometimes I just spread it around on the ground to also deter any other pests that could be affected or will attempt to eat my plants. Next, we'll talk about deer. I know want to believe that most of us are in urban communities where deer are less likely to come to our spaces, but who knows, some of our viewers might have acreages and large spaces where deer is an issue. So what you can do if your plants are exposed to deer is same, you can spray the plants with the garlic and hot pepper solution just around it, and then you can also hang bars of strong scented soap or dryer sheets. I'll recommend Irish Spring soap on that. You can hang it around, or you can also grate it and just spread it around the edges of your plants. That will also deter deer from coming close. Next we'll talk about is raccoons. With raccoons, what to look out for is overturned pots, missing fruit, and bottom line, any damage that occurs overnight. Raccoons tend to create havoc at night, so just anything, if you see a large mess between the evening and the following morning, then a raccoon is usually the suspect. And what you can do here is sprinkle the cayenne pepper, garlic powder, or vinegar soaked cotton balls around. Then raccoons are usually attracted to food or compost or dirt, so try not to have that. And then they are also afraid of light, so if you have motion sensor lights at the backyard, perfect. Or if you have motion sensor sprinklers as well, that's perfect. Next we'll talk about cats. These are actually whether domestic or your neighbor's cats climbing the fence and coming to wreak havoc in your garden. So you may just notice that there's broken stems, you can find their feces in the soil or dug up beds. What you do with cats don't like the smell of citrus. So you can scatter citrus peels or coffee grounds or vinegar soaked cotton buds around. And also you just stick some forks in your yard or chopsticks. That also tends to repel the cats. Or you can just use chicken wire or mesh over the soil to prevent them from digging if your cats or if the cats in question are digging and destroying your bed. Next is dogs, and dogs, this may actually be your pets if you're a pet owner, but just notice that they trample on your plants or they dig up soil or they break branches. They don't have no regards for the area they're playing in. And then what you can do is you can set up a low fence there. You can use vinegar spray around the garden edge. If you're using vinegar, please not put vinegar on any of your plants, just around the edge. And then it can actually designate a digging spot for your pet, for a dog, so that they do dig there and reward them as opposed to them digging in your garden bed. Next, we'll talk about mice or rats, and what to look out for here is gnawed fruit, hollowed out tomatoes, and disturbed mulch. What you do if you have suspect mice or rat or have them, you sprinkle peppermint oil on cotton buds and place them near the affected areas. They cannot stand the smell. You can use steel or wood to block access to sheds or compost bins. Like steel or wool, that's the bottom. Just make it, rats are able to squeeze through any little hole. So just make sure those are actually secured. And then another alternative is to grow mint nearby. But please, if you decide to grow mint, make sure you put your mint in a container, because mints tend to grow like wildfire, and before you know it, will take over your garden. Next, we'll talk about is moles or voles, and these are quite annoying because they just dig a hole and stay close to your property, which is annoying. But what to look out for here is like large bites out of trees and fruit and deep burrows nearby. So what you would do is you apply the castor oil and dish soap spray around the perimeter and in the holes. You can install like a wire fencing. And if you do that, make sure that wire fencing is at least 3 feet tall and buried at least 20 inches underground, so that way they cannot seep through. Or you may use motion detecting devices or wind spinners, because they are also afraid of any motion. If you notice, whenever they see you, they tend to run. So motion censored items will also help. And the last we'll talk about is slugs or snails. Now, these ones wrecked my garden last year. I just started noticing that there were like holes in leaves, holes in my fruit. I did not know what was happening. It took me a while before I realized that there were actually slugs eating my plants. It was very, very painful because I lost quite a number of fruit last year. So that's the things to look out for. Once you find like irregular holes in your plants or in your leaves, then there's a high possibility it's slugs. So one of the natural deterrents is to set bear traps. That's like a shallow dish filled with beer, and then you place it there, and then surprise, surprise, by the following morning they are drunk and inside the bowl. Or you can sprinkle crushed egg shells or coffee grounds around the bases, anything that will make their walk a little bit difficult for them, so that will also deter them. Or another thing, can water in the morning instead of an evening to keep the soil dry overnight. I tried that, but it did not work until I ended up using the bear traps. Just an FYI. So this is just a list of household items that you can use. As remember, I said I was going to try to show you how to use what you have to get what you want. So cayenne pepper, garlic powder, chili flakes, white vinegar, dish soap, Dawn preferably. Use coffee ground granules, citrus peels, cinnamon, dryer sheets, strong scented soap bars, Irish Spring preferably, plastic forks or chopsticks, plastic bags, old CDs or foil paper for reflection, and then bone meal. As I mentioned, it's dual purpose, both a soil amendment and a deterrent for rabbits. Now, for things you may need to buy if you want to garden items and accessories, You can, if you're using chicken wire or mesh, you can use garden netting. If you're using motion activated lights or sprinklers, reflective tape can also be used in place of CDs, like the wood chimes or reflective wind spinners. Your plastic owls or rubber snakes, those are decoys to avoid birds, and then bear traps or shallow containers for the slugs, and then mint plants, that if you don't already have mint in your yard or want to plant it, then you might just get a mint plant and that will help. So what I've done here is I've created a spreadsheet. There are 2 pages, so we'll go from one to the other, just showing you the item that can be used and what that item can be used, what animals that item can be used to deter. So you can actually just pick and choose, or combine 1 or 2 things here based on this. You don't have to go through everything depending on what is affecting your yard. So this is the second page of the spreadsheet. As I said before, just identify what is affecting your yard. If one solution can attend to those things that are affecting your yard, then do just one, because sometimes you can get under pressure, under stress, if you're trying all different remedies to solve a problem for different things. Remember, you can actually use one that will take care of all. So now let's talk recipes. For the garlic and hot pepper spray, what you will need is 2 cloves of garlic or 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon cayenne pepper or hot pepper flakes, 1 liter of water, and 2 drops of Dawn dish soap, and this is optional. So you blend everything into a bottle, and then if you're using fresh garlic or fresh pepper, sieve out the particles, and then you can spray around your plants. What I do, remember those watering bottles we made out of bottles in the beginning when we started our indoor plants? That's what I use to water them on the outside, and then avoid putting on the plant itself, but just put on the ground around it, preferably. For the vinegar soaked cotton balls, all you need is just white vinegar and cotton balls. So you soak the cotton balls in vinegar, then place them in small containers or shallow dishes and put them around garden entry points, or like just periodically around your fence. Now for the citrus peel scatter, just grate citrus or save your peels, dry them and just spread them at the perimeter of your garden and you will be fine. Next is coffee grounds. This is very simple. Just get your used coffee grounds from your coffee machine and then sprinkle a thin layer on the bed or around your plants. It's also like 2 functions: a good natural fertilizer, but also prevents some animals from affecting your garden. Now if you have slugs, then you just need a beer trap, and that's just like beer. All you need is beer and a shallow container, and pour it like halfway with beer. What you would do with this one is sink it into the ground so it's at the same level, the top of the bowl is at the same level as your garden, so that way they'll wiggle their way in and just land in there. Next, we'll talk about peppermint cotton balls. So all you need to do is need peppermint oil and cotton balls, and you just pour a couple of drops of peppermint oil, 5 to 10 drops, onto each cotton ball, and then place them around the garden edges or near where you see that there are burrows. Your rats or your mice are affecting that, and that will equally repel them. For the citrus vinegar spray, you can use 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of water, and juice of 1 lemon. Mix all the ingredients into a spray bottle or into your locally made watering can and then just spray along the garden paths or edges. But anything that involves vinegar, do not spray directly on plants. I will reiterate again. Any remedy that involves vinegar, please do not spray directly on plants. And for the castor oil spray, what you will need is 2 tablespoons of castor oil, 1 tablespoon of Dawn dish soap, and 1 liter of water. Mix well and always shake before you apply. So what you do, this is especially for ground holes, moles, and voles. So what you do is you spray around the burrow entrances and around the garden perimeter, and then repeat this weekly or after it rains. And last but not the least, technically not a recipe, but if you want to use reflective deterrents to deter squirrels or birds, what you should do is hang the items from string, wire, or poles near the plants. What I do is I use like the silver reflective tape. You can get those from dollar store or Dollarama or any of the dollar stores there. What I do is I hang them over my cages, my tomato cages. So that's what I actually use to repel them. So just hang them and make it visible. And if you can, put it in a place where there's direct sunlight, so that the sun will actually cause a reflection, which will chase the birds or deter the birds and squirrels from coming close to your plants. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care until next time. Bye bye.